President Adam Barrow will preside over 55th anniversary since the end of British colonial rule. The World Food Programme requires 200,000 metric tons of grains to end hunger in Zimbabwe. The coronavirus outbreak may affect Uganda's economic growth, says the country's central bank. This and more coming on The World Today. Hello, this is iAfrica TV, and of course it is 1803 GMT here in our studios in Banjul, and you are watching The World Today on iAfrica TV. And of course we apologize for the late start of the news bulletin due to the TRRC hearings. I am Amadou Kante, and now the news in detail. The Office of the President of the Republic of the Gambia has declared the capital city, Banjul, where the security forces and representatives from more than nations will take part in the parade. President Adam Barrow will be in attendance, and all invited guests are requested to be seated by 9 a.m., according to a press release from the State House. On the evening of Tuesday, Interregional Athletic Championship of Lower Basic Schools will be coordinated by the Minister of Basic and Secondary Education at the Independence Stadium in Bakau. Outstanding athletes will be awarded prizes, while individual regions will also be awarded based on their performance at the championship. From matters of the independence celebrations here in the Gambia, next we head to Uganda, where the novel coronavirus outbreak may affect Uganda's economic growth outlook, the country's central bank has said this week. According to the bank, if the global threatening diseases persist for an extended period, it will cause effects on global financial activities. Let's have more details of that in this report.
Uganda's central bank says although economic growth prospects remain positive, the outbreak of the coronavirus may affect the growth outlook.
There is considerable uncertainty regarding the duration and severity of the coronavirus outbreak.
And many of these imports are raw materials.
Back home and report on the ongoing TRRC hearing, as you are following, that the former State House Imam Abdullah Fati appeared before the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparation Commission on Monday, where he testified on several issues of religious matters after his name was advancedly mentioned by different religious leaders before the commission. He said since his appointment as Imam at State House in 1995, he never had special relationship with former President Jammeh, and that his role was to lead prayers at the mosque in State House. Let's have more details of his testimony in this report. Former State House Imam Abdullah Fati appeared before the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparation Commission on Monday, where he testified on several issues of religious matters after his name was advancedly mentioned by different religious leaders who testified before the commission.
Imam Ratib Gambia. Being the Imam of the State House is the same as just any other Imam, but you are not the Imam Ratib.
Man difference sort of Imam Dolten.
I had no difference with other Imams.
In essence, you are telling us that being Imam of the State House Mosque is just like being the same. It's just the same as being an Imam in any other mosque in Gambia. Is that what you say?
Amonta benyine foka nyanko kake State House alimamoti la jamengo tuje wala mnyintiko ko alimami dolu benyamin jaman dolu kono banko karo bela fo amuna wonyang wo alimami ya nya kilimolomba.
Yes, until Imam Lule bije amankende damat. Yes, we were 5 Imams. I was not the only one.
Imam Fati also explained the Gambia Supreme Islamic Council, to which he served as a member of Awakening and Jurisprudence. was established by religious scholars to coordinate Islamic matters in the country. He said when the idea of creating the council was conceived, the religious leaders taught the country to make sure that it was based on national consensus. The council, he said, was closely working with the government for the smooth implementation of its functions, but it was not for religious extremism.
Mansala sembo Supreme Islamic Council buko tamandile sembo niko sembo siatale. The authority of the state is not executed by the Supreme Islamic Council. And if you talk about authority, there are various types of authority. Police soto. We have no police. Cell soto. We have no cell. NIA soto. We have no NIA.
But we would come to that.
Okay.
Because the whole issue is the Supreme Islamic Council has been arrogating to itself authority that it does not have by getting people arrested.
Supreme Islamic Council ka sembele di ifangola wotu mo mentebulu kadu e kanyin ferolu ke pour ye molu muta ke arrest.
It never happened.
But you agree that the Supreme Islamic Council has no such authority to do so.
He testified that the Supreme Islamic Council's responsibility was based on Islamic jurisprudence stemmed from the Holy Quran and ways of the Prophet Muhammad. Reporting for Africa News, I am Amadou Kante. And from the report there on the ongoing TRRC hearings, where today Imam Fati appears before the Commission, we will, of course, next report again on Gambia's marking 55th independence celebration, because the debate on whether or not Gambia's independence should be celebrated continued to surface in every February. The root of this argument is hooked for the fact that attainment of independence was preceded by one of the most inhuman treatment by Africans by the West in form of slavery and colonization. The evolution began from the so-called discovery of Africa by Europeans explorers to the destruction of the existing trans-Saharan trade structures and down to the introduction of chaos in Africa are among issues this continent is compelled to remember. In this insert, Gambian historian Hassum Sise justifies some of the reasons to continue the common form of celebrations.
Still, it's never still. I mean, we have to celebrate it as we do. The March past is important, to highlight the role of the security forces. Although we didn't fight for our independence, but at least the security forces help us to maintain our independence. So this should be highlighted. The March passes, the children. Yeah, I think it cannot be still. But maybe to add, we can make it like more scholarly, like symposium, debate. Conferences, where scholars will come and debate about Gambia of yesterday, Gambia of today, and the Gambia of tomorrow.
Well, the Gambia goes ahead with the usual independence celebration as the country clocks 55 years since the end of foreign rule, part of the leadership recruitment exercise under the TAF Africa Global Day. Now, from that development, of course, next we head on to talk about matters of TAF Global Africa, because part of the leadership recruitment exercise under the TAF Africa Academy, the chief executive of the organization, Mustafa Njai, supervised an intensive cleansing exercise at the Brusubi runabout on Sunday. Basic bedrock of the exercise were 300 young people who formed the second batch, the TAF Leadership Academy volunteers from the neighboring community, joined in to clear all forms of rubbish generated from the domestic setup. Details in this report by Aissatou Tamba.
About 1,000 of volunteers gathered in response to a call by the TAF Leadership Academy to clean up the roundabout areas in Brusubi on Sunday. TAF Africa Global Leadership Academy this year enrolled 300 men and women to undergo leadership training as leaders for the next generation of Africa. Their orientation in January followed a 2-day event of the 5th edition of TAF Africa Conference and Networking. The Leadership Academy pledged to train 1,000 leaders within 5 years starting 2019 in series of activities that will encourage participants to creative thinking in solving challenges of the continent. The cleaning exercise was meant to make the place look much better.
I had a meeting with the Leadership Academy that after having been trained, for 1 year on leadership values, what next? That we need to show signs of patriotism. In this country today, there's a big debate of being patriot. Now, if you're a patriot, I think we should back it up with actions. So, together with the other branches of TAF Africa Global, we all came together with some other partners to take up the Brusubi roundabout. The Brusubi roundabout is very central. And as a Gambian, I feel ashamed of myself when I have my counterparts travel from other countries and drive from the airport and see how dirty it is.
Justifying the move as a social responsibility, Mustafa Njai, Chief Executive Officer of TAF Africa, urged that all Gambians must practice love for their country and that the blame game must be laid to rest.
I think the country is at a level where we should stop the blame game, we should stop the weight game. Everybody is pointing a finger on somebody who should be responsible. Everybody is getting out to gather crowds, demonstrations, protests. I just believe that we should back it by actions. And initiatives like this, I think, should be sparked. So as Gambians, we clean up our country. This is the least that we can do.
In partnership with few other non-governmental organizations, the Young Future Leaders peel up all forms of waste generated from households and the business sector for onward disposal by the Brikama Area Council. Surrounded by the towns of Brufut, Sukuta and Bijilo, Brusubi, which is about 12 kilometers from the capital city Banjul, is one of the fastest growing cities in the Gambia, with well-planned estates and state-of-art settlement plans. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Aissatou Tamba.
Well, initiative of cleansing exercise is done by TAF Global there, a great initiative, and we hope they continue. Now, from that report there by Aissatou Tamba, next we head to Zimbabwe, where millions of Zimbabweans continue to face the crisis of food, such as the World Food Programme struggle to raise enough resources to remedy the situation. The Global Food Agency now requires to provide 200,000 metric tons of grains to address critical food aid to about 4 million people in the next 6 months. Let's have more details of that in this report.
The World Food Programme requires a staggering 200,000 metric tons of grain to disburse critical food aid to about 4 million people over the next 6 months. But it's not sure it can reach them all.
In order to scale up to the 4 million, we'll need additional resources. So we may not be able to reach the full number. We're planning to get up to 3.5 million this month. But we may not be able to continue that through April, but we may not be able to get to the full 4.1 million if we don't get additional resources.
The United Nations agency is $103 million short of its $212 million appeal to meet the hunger emergency, which shows no sign of letting up, as projections for the current season are also bleak.
Ideally, we would be hoping that harvest in April would begin to alleviate the food shortages in the country, but preliminary information indicates that the late arrival of the rains meant that many crops wilted in the fields. Farmers didn't have enough additional seeds to plant, and so we're not expecting good news about the upcoming harvest.
The Zimbabwean government is procuring its own grain under a separate state food assistance program. It recently lifted a ban on the importation of genetically modified maize as it attempts to mobilize the 110,000 metric tons of maize needed each month to make sure that nobody goes hungry.
From the report there in Zimbabwe, and of course finally we head to Congo, where the director of World Health Organization has announced the decline in Ebola cases in the Democratic Republic of Congo, but warned that even a single case could trigger serious problems. Let's have more of that in this report.
The Director General of the World Health Organization is cautious about contracting the Ebola virus in the DRC. Handshakes have been discouraged because the disease is highly contagious. Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus' visit comes 2 days after the WHO extended the health emergency status of the Ebola outbreak.
Ebola has declined really significantly, and it's almost being finished actually, and we're at the end of the tunnel now. But at the same time, because of the security condition in eastern DRC, even one case could trigger serious problems. So for me, it's like taking a caution, saying it's not over until it's over, even the last case.
Decades of conflict and corruption have blighted the DRC's healthcare system, but the government says it's determined to change the way things are done.
The fight against corruption is my priority in the health ministry. Just a few days ago, I ordered an inquiry into a case where money was stolen. The key suspects have been arrested.
The DRC president is set to endorse the roadmap that the Congolese and international health experts will design for improving the health sector.
The DRC is grappling with many epidemics that have killed thousands of people over the past 2 years. International partners hope the new strategies for building a stronger healthcare system will stop the deaths of Congolese citizens from preventable diseases.
That report there in DR Congo on the decline of the Ebola diseases will end this news bulletin. Well, viewers, that's all we have for you. But for more on these stories and others, you can also log on our website, onafrica.tv. But for now, once again, I am Amadou Kante, and bye-bye. Have a pleasant night.